false starts, shall we say? Just text Greg.
I think he's the only other one, right?
Yeah, I think so. Hey, John, thank you for the comments.
You're welcome.
Very insightful as always. Thorough would be a better term, actually.
What was that?
Thank you for the comments. They were very thorough, as always.
You might have noticed I did them at midnight last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I noticed is you did.
I said today because it was like 12:03 or something.
You took the time to figure out how much concrete was coming into that site.
Yeah.
I've been doing that because I was very concerned about its carbon footprint, but I won't talk about that because it's enormous. It would never be built in Europe, this project.
Okay.
What would they do in Europe? Would they put it on pillars or what would they do?
Well, you'd have to justify, you'd have to buy carbon offsets, which
Right.
add to the price.
Right.
And then it becomes, sooner or later, it becomes prohibitive. And we haven't got that far yet, obviously.
Yeah, not yet.
But cement, the production of cement is a huge energy hog. Cement is just takes 7% of the world's energy is making cement or something crazy like that.
Oh, yeah.
That is crazy.
Some enormous number, yes.
Yeah. There was a big push to put a lot of fly ash
Yes.
in concrete. That seems to have faded a little bit.
I don't think so. I mean, it's still used extensively. It's it's a waste product and it's free essentially, but we've been using it for 40, 50 years now.
Yeah, it seemed to be very, very high, and they seem to be having some issues with, I don't know if it was related at all, but with moisture mitigation in concrete slabs at the same time, but it's probably just my imagination.
No, it's extensively used still, but as coal-fired plants, power plants go offline, there's not going to be as much fly ash around.
Yeah. All right, well, looks like we got everyone here. It's 6:02, so we'll call the meeting to order. I'll do a quick roll call. Attendance. Nancy Toomey.
I hear.
Michael Bean.
Here.
Kirk McCormick.
Here.
John Coop.
I'm here.
Brad Condon.
Present.
And Greg Stepler.
I'm here.
Thanks, guys. So the first item is the review of last month's meeting minutes. I was only on the part of the meeting, but I did review the minutes and didn't have any comments myself. If you can all take a minute, if you haven't already reviewed them, poke around, go through them, and if you guys had a couple minutes to look at those, maybe we can have a motion to accept, or if there are any comments, we could talk about it.
I make a motion to accept the minutes as submitted.
And I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? We'll do a roll call vote. Nancy Toomey.
Aye.
Michael Bean. Michael Bean.
Aye.
Having a little trouble with his mute button. Kirk McCormick.
Aye.
John Coot.
Aye.
Brad Condon.
Aye.
Greg Stepler.
Aye.
Okay. The next item on the minutes is the West Side Fire Station narrative. How did you handle that last month, Nancy? Did you just open it on your computer and
I
walk
did.
through?
Yeah, I opened it on the computer so that everybody could read it, and then we just discussed whether it was any changes. And I think there was a typo somewhere in one of them, but yeah.
Okay. I'll see if I can do the same. I think that's what we did the month before.
Right.
Bear with me a moment. Screen. Sure I share the right screen. Okay, I have the narrative up. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
All right, so the first page is pretty straightforward, and it's similar to the other narratives we've already read and approved, or so I don't know if anyone needs to read through that.
No.
So moving down, I read through this ahead of time. I thought it was, pretty well written and, covered just about everything we wanted to cover. There's probably just some sort of fact checking we need to do that we can do on the fly here. If anyone can open up like the checklist or any other information while we go, or, we can leave some stuff for later. I don't know if anyone else had a chance to read this ahead of time and confirm any of these.
Yeah, when I put this together, I was just using the notes because I wasn't actually there for the walkthrough. I had a mediation the next day, so I just did my best with the notes. And so if I got anything wrong, certainly let me know. And then a couple of them, like the occupancy classification and the building construction classification, I just wasn't sure where to look for that, and I hadn't had a chance to find that information yet. So if anybody has any input or can point me in the right direction, I'm happy to close those loops.
Okay. So the first paragraph looks okay to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if Joe and Kevin, if those the recent sort of renovations and things make sense to you. Okay, just moving down to the building description. I don't recall what the primary flooring, I think it was primarily resilient flooring, except for the apparatus bay, which was
It's concrete. Yeah.
concrete. There was maybe some carpet in the upper floors.
It's all VCT on the second floor, which was actually, it was all installed new in, was it 15, Joe? I mean, 16?
Might have lost Joe. It's the problem with these remote meetings. So I don't know if anyone can read the edits that I put in as we went along. I think that pretty much covers it. There's definitely some ceramic tile in the bathrooms, but it's predominantly VCT.
Yeah, it's predominantly VCT.
Like those bunk rooms are all VCT, right? There's no
Yes.
carpet.
No carpet, and that was all replaced. I think it was 16 when the there was the fire at the condo building there by the town hall. I'm drawing a blank on the name of it.
High school.
It's the old high school building. Yeah, it
Yeah.
happened around the same time. We had a flood
Yeah.
on the second floor.
Okay. Well, the ceiling's predominantly drywall. That's what I recall. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I believe so.
I don't know if anyone else has any other comments on that paragraph. As far as occupancy classification and building construction classification, we could kind of just do some research and circle back on that. I don't recall, if anyone has any comments on that paragraph.
I don't think so.
I don't know if anyone else has any other comments on that paragraph. Nancy, you could probably point Kirk.
Yeah, I'm looking for the occupancy classification. John can probably give us the building construction classification, but I mean, yeah, I'll look.
Okay, if we come up with that before we
Yeah.
close down, otherwise we'll just table it to someone to do that research and give it to Kirk or myself to just finish this out.
Or just tell me where to look. I just don't know where to look for it.
Building code is where it is.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll circle back on that, the observations. I don't know if anyone had any comments on the descriptions of the observations. I mean, I didn't have any changes or edits to the observations. Is everyone good with that?
Yeah, I read
Silence will
it.
speak in the affirmative. And then the recommendations were just the items pulled off of the checklist, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know if everyone else is good. I don't think we need a vote or anything, but we'll just circle back at some point on the occupancy and the building construction classification.
Pat, as far as the actions, can you scroll down to those?
Sure, sure.
I don't know if Kevin or Joe have addressed any of these since we did the inspection. The first one's kind of a general one we use everywhere.
Well, our goal, one of our goals this year as a department is to put a sealant PM into School Dude, and we're gonna have to bid that out to get someone to do that. We are going to be actively pursuing that this year, FY '22.
Yeah. So
Second item. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with number 2. I mean, it's pretty much, that kitchen was completely renovated. Kev, when was that done up there?
The kitchen was done in, it was like 12 or 13. It was completely done. And then again, when we had the incident there, it was during mutual aid coverage that was over there during that fire, and a faucet was left on and flooded that second floor. We did all the flooring in there, which included a major abatement of the existing flooring because it was asbestos. And we also painted that place top to bottom. That whole second floor was repainted.
Right.
Yeah. So I think I don't really see this item may actually not belong under the recommendations. I mean, some of the areas that I saw and I recall are like the bathrooms that are 100% functional. But I think they're like original to the building, like the tile and some of the fixtures even are original to the building. So, so it's tired, and we wanted to note that, but we didn't see anything that didn't function. You know, it worked, but there were some spaces. That's an old building that hasn't been completely renovated, and being a fire station, there are firefighters living in it 24/7. So it's not like the town hall where people are just in it during the day. So I thought there was some tired spaces. I didn't see it as anything that we would recommend, you need to do something. This was more of, from a capital planning perspective, at some point there probably needs to be some work. The building is, as far as we could tell, structurally sound, keeps the weather out, and serves its purpose, and is functional and is well maintained. But that was just something more like the bathrooms had, urinals that are probably original to the 1956 construction.
And then as far as the unit heaters go, Kevin, any issues with those, or?
No, they were all functioning.
Yeah.
We haven't had any problems with them.
The
Yeah,
other thing to keep in mind, our capital plan is for any particular project that's over $10,000 in value. So if anything like one of those unit heaters was giving us trouble, we would take it out and replace that in our operating budget. So just keep
Okay.
that in mind. That's why you wouldn't probably see that on the capital plan, those unit heaters.
Yeah. And again, those are more things just to point out to make sure, you know, that they're on your radar. The one thing that probably should be looked at is the lighting in the hose tower.
Okay.
That's probably worth looking at. Okay, thank you, Brad, for pointing that out. We should make sure we're circling back to those items.
So Pat, on the use classification, it's actually mixed use. So it has business B, it has a little bit of residential because they're sleeping there, and it has storage for the garage bays. So it's, you could say mixed use A, I'm sorry, mixed use B, R, and S. But I could get more specific on all of those.
Okay. All right. So we'll circle back on the building construction classification.
Yeah, that I'm not sure.
Okay.
And it has it. Does it have a big assembly space too? It has a big meeting room there, right, on the second floor that is open to the public. Yeah, I'll look at it and see. That might still be under B because it's probably educational use. Anyway,
Okay.
I'll double
Yeah.
check.
All right, so I'll save that. Stop sharing my screen. The next item, and I know we've got everyone here for the water tower project, which I put the end of the minutes because I know it'll probably take the longest time. But before we jump into that, Joe, nothing in particular, but if you could just give us a quick update on any ongoing facilities projects, and also if anything's been done on the MSBA submission.
So as far as the MSBA submission goes, it's due on June 25th, and the school department is preparing the SOI right now for the a Killam project, if you will.
Okay.
There were other, on the accelerated repair program, we were contemplating maybe putting in for the boilers at Parker Middle School, but because they're less than 25 years old, they don't meet the criteria. And that also goes for the same thing as the roof at the Parker Middle School, which is going to be something I can talk about in a minute, which is a project we're looking at. We're going to go into design in the next few months and hopefully have that out to bid next year. But again, less than 25 years old. So we wouldn't even qualify. So the big one is the SOI for Killam, and John Doherty has been, you know, a lot of that work was captured in the enrollment study and past SOIs we had done when we took advantage of the new roof over there. So we have a lot of the information through School Dude and through other projects we've attempted to get invited in on. So I believe it's a 6-month turnaround to hear if you get invited in. That's what we're hearing.
Okay.
It's kind of tricky on timing too, with capital and everything like that. So that's where we are on the SOI.
So just jumping back to that, I'm sure John Doherty he was around when we did the last round of school renovations. He wasn't the superintendent then.
That's correct.
Right, but he was around.
He was the assistant superintendent at the time. Yes.
Yeah, and he's done a lot of legwork leading up to where the town is now. And he's turning over to a new superintendent in September. So, I guess we want to get as much as we can out of Mr. Doherty.
Yeah.
Before he goes. Okay, if there's anything on that submission that you want to run by us, just let us know. Obviously,
yeah, I think I'll mention it to him. I'll mention it to John. But I know he's been working on that, so he's in the process of putting that all together. And when he's needed anything, he did rely on the enrollment study through GNAP. So,
yep.
But I will definitely mention that to him. This year's capital is mostly done. We have to have everything complete, as you know, by the end of June. So all of our capital projects are pretty much wrapped up in facilities, which is good news. The townwide security project is, I'd say about 80% complete. Schools and town buildings are all done. I'm going to be doing a update to the select board in June. Overall, give the boards an update on where we are on that project. As we look ahead to FY22, in July, we're going to get some seed money for the design for Turf 1 stadium and track, and also for the Parker Middle School roof. So that's pretty exciting. And we're in the process of completing the investment grade audit with Noresco for the performance contracting initiative, so which will impact all 17 locations. So, and that project wouldn't be for at least another year before we'd be able to get rolling on that. We're still scoping that out. So
Okay.
that's pretty much it. Getting some good work done right now in the buildings. We just painted the exterior of the Main Street Fire Station. We did the whole building and replaced some rotted wood over there. Had a 60-foot lift over there. We had a contractor in there. Now we're doing West Side Fire Station. Pretty much, what, 3 more days over there, Kevin, would you say?
Yeah, they should be done the end of the week.
Yep.
Take a
So
little cool.
we
So you're
try
doing the
we
same
try to-
thing there, replacing any rotted wood and painting
over at which one? The West Side?
west side.
Yes, there is some rotted wood over there, but 3 years ago, we did a lot of fascia and soffit work over there in that building.
Yeah.
The hose up on the top of the bell tower or the hose tower,
Yeah, okay.
that's another area that they're gonna be working on, so. But yes, the type of stuff you have to keep after, so.
Does anyone have any questions for Joe? Both? Any of that? Cruising right along tonight. All right, thanks. And with any of those things coming up, Joe, like particularly the Parker roof and Turf 1 design, keep us in the loop and feel free to
Yep.
bring anything to us if you
Yep.
want our opinion on anything. I think
Yeah,
we were directed not to go on the roofs though, so I mean,
Yeah. The Turf 1, the Turf 2 project we just did was DPW was great. Ryan Percival played a big role in that project with us over there in constructing the field, doing submittal reviews and things like that, and just really came out really nice. So
yeah.
we're hoping Ryan's got lots of free time next year.
Yeah, Turf 2 did come out nice.
It did.
That went smooth. You guys did a good job. I was kind of watching from afar.
Yep. But I will keep you guys updated, definitely.
Okay. All right, so next up, water tower. Brian, you're up.
I can't remember the last time we met. Was it March?
It was
April?
April 5th.
Okay, so April 5th, I think we had just started talking about the lead and our limits of work and where we were going to expand that lead. So since then, we've had, I think, a couple meetings with CPDC, and we have a final decision rendered through them. We are going to mitigate all the lead on site, which will extend all the way out to Beacon Street and pretty much encompass the majority, if not all, of that parcel. That will require us to extensively remove a lot of trees in that easterly side of that site. We had went out there with the tree warden just to get a overall health and scope of what the work that we needed to do. And when we went out there, it was very clear right off the bat, at least to the tree warden, that a lot of them were either not growing to their full potential, they were too closely grouped, there was a lot of damage, so they weren't really trees worth saving, and we'd be better off just replanting the trees in a more appropriate fashion, evenly spaced apart, instead of just naturally planted like they were over the years with a lot of scrubs and everything like that. So that led us to expanding the lead removal in its entirety off the site. We did extra, how many extra samples did we take, Mike? I think another dozen maybe altogether.
It was
Between
12 to 14.
Yeah, between shallow and deep samples. We were able to pretty much confirm that the limits of the lead are pretty much on site, so that's good. What was decided through CPDC and with the residents involved was to move the fence pretty much to where the location of the existing foundation of the old tank is, and then also to place the temporary cell tower in the northwest corner. Mike, I don't know if you want to share the plan just to go over. Outside of that, there were a lot of discussions about using textured concrete formwork on the pedestal. Price for that was astronomical, so we were just going to stay with the standard forming for that pedestal. There was another discussion about changing the paint color, so that we haven't decided how we're going to handle that yet. That may be handled in maybe an add alternate
Get it corrected there, Ryan. It's not a paint.
Oh, there you go. Glass fused to steel. We've been referring to it as the neighborhood's been referring to it as paint, so they beat me down.
Sorry.
So we may just handle that as an add alternate, or we may handle it as maybe a change during the submittal process, depending on if the select board wants to entertain the changing in the color. But that can also be anywhere from 4 to 8% the cost of the tank. So it's a substantial cost just to change from whatever the standard color that tank manufacturer that wins the bid has. It's either cobalt blue or some version of blue. So usually that change is, like I said, between 4 to 8%. Some of the other changes that we made was to remove the gate on the far easterly side. And you can see where the fence line pushed over, Mike, there you go. And then we relocated the gate just in front of the tank, created a driveway over there. And that basically will keep any of our day-to-day traffic out of that space, depending on whatever the town wants to use for it. It becomes open space or whatever they would like to do with it. So in the northwest corner, you can see that 25 by 25 ballasted monopole. That is out to bid right now for the RFP. That's expected to open, barring any more addendum, that's expected to open May 27th. The way that RFP was constructed was to have some entity, whether it's carriers or third party, design, build, and relocate all the equipment, at least for 2 cell carriers and the 911 equipment on for the town. The town will supply its own 911 equipment and more than likely have its own contractor move the equipment over, but they have to provide a space for the town of Reading for that.
What does that foundation look like, Ryan? Is it, you say it's ballasted?
So that RFP went out with minimal guidelines as far as it's being designed and built by the carriers or tower company, and the way they mentioned ballasted, and so that would be stripped of all of the topsoil, get it down to regular soil. There would be a gravel pad, I believe, put in, and then on top of that sits this very big steel metal frame which houses counterweight blocks and everything like that, and that's how the monopole sits inside of that. And so that's designed to the loading and wind requirements that's necessary to design the monopole. And so that'll be submitted over as part of the RFP for us to peer review.
Ryan, how's the how are you going to handle the lead contaminated soil? Because that's, so you're basically, you have an RFP out to do that temporary tower, so that's taken out of the major tank contract, which makes sense.
Right. And so you sort of stepping into a sequencing issue that Mike and I have been trying to work out here in our heads. Ideally, ideally everything on this property would be under one contract, but it's impossible to do that. And since we have to split out the temporary tower, that leaves us in a position of how do we strip that soil in that envelope prior to the construction of the cell tower. And so when Mike and I were trying to go through it, we were thinking, can we strip that soil and then stockpile it, you know, to be removed at a later date with proper precautions with tarping and erosion protection around it. I don't know if the answer was an illicit no, but it was more of, if we can find a better way to do it than to do it a different way. If we can sequence this appropriately, and so I believe the invitation to bid, we're looking for an opening, I think July 31st, right, Mike? Somewhere around there?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Yeah, so that right now on our schedule, barring that DEP is going to finish their review, and it's going to take them 6 weeks, then that pushes us to July 31st. And DEP just received the packet to review beginning of this week, end of last week. So their time clock starts ticking. They have 6 weeks to finish that review, and they may get it done fast. They may not. I know they've already commented with 30 or 40 questions already. So we'll go through that as fast as we can, and that will dictate when we put it out to bid. But if we can get these two sort of lined up close enough, we may be able to get our contractor in there to strip the loom before they construct that temporary tower. And that's just going to be a sequencing issue for us. So we may still have to look at the option of stockpiling soil on site for the contractor to remove.
In the RFP, an option to have the RFP to build that cell tower include, you know, remediation of a certain amount of soil. That's probably the audience that's bidding that is probably not really the contractors we want doing that.
Right, Pat. So it does not. Tower companies and cell carriers generally want the site remediated prior to them building. Period. They're not in that business, and we knew that. And so the entirety of the site will be stripped under the contract for the construction of the water tank. For the most part, whoever's constructing the water tank, be it a site contractor and with subbing out the construction of the tank or vice versa, they're more well-versed to strip and do the site work than a company coming in just to erect a ballasted monopole. So if we can get in there and strip that back corner at least prior to them coming in and placing that, then we're fine. And it's just a scheduling and sequencing issue, which we haven't worked out yet, but we had a meeting on site with all of the potential bidders for the RFP on last Thursday, and we were discussing that exact situation on how do we take care of that. So that's still yet to be
the bidders for the cell tower RFP.
What is that?
That was the bidders for the cell tower RFP?
That's correct. That's
okay.
Correct.
And when you mentioned July 31st bid opening, that would be for the water tank?
That's correct.
Yeah. You probably said this, but I missed it. The RFP for the temp tower, when's that due?
May 27th. It's opening on May 27th.
Okay. Would it be possible to I don't know what the dollar value of just like stripping that back corner would be and how it would fall under procurement, like what the procurement options would be, but would that be an option to simply hire a contractor to just strip the back corner? You just want to try and stay away from that.
Yeah, no, I mean, we could absolutely do anything. When we start pulling items out of the contract, and it's just a small amount of work. We're going to get nailed for a bigger price than if we had an economy of scale going for the project.
Yeah.
That being said, there's a possibility that even our DPW crew, with guidance from Weston and Sampson and what to do for the soils and how to stockpile, we could possibly do that as well.
Okay.
So we're looking into that option. We still haven't cast aside the option of just sequencing this, because the bid openings, believe it or not, I mean, we are opening May 27th, but there's another component to this too that may delay everything, which is putting out to bid the RFP for the new lease agreement to go on the new tank. And so that with the lease agreement for the temporary tower itself could be about a month before that gets up and running, which puts us right around that July timeframe anyway. So we're getting pretty close. We just don't want to. We want that temp tower up as fast as we can, period, because it's going to take about 3 weeks or so just to get everything moved over after it's built.
Ryan, one of the comments I gave to Pat about this temporary tower is it's very close to the excavation for the foundations for the water tank, something like 8 feet. And since the excavation depth is going to be something in the order of 11 feet, it seemed to me that it was just too close in that northwest corner. Is there no other place on the site that it can go? You're putting a big excavation in which there's going to be rock blasting probably next to a ballasted foundation for a communications tower, and they're very, very close.
I understand that.
I'm not sure how you will, convince the tower people that their foundation is, or their ballasted foundation is going to be stable during the tank construction.
So they're aware of the project. They're aware of the tight constraints that we have. There were several options that were presented. CPDC felt as though that this was the best option given the proximities of the houses and the other locations. So this is where we fell. There are different things that we can do for the construction of that foundation. There's a support of earth that can happen. The price does go up if the support of earth has to be, drastically engineered.
Well, we don't know the foundation design for the water tank. It could be much bigger than what is currently shown on Weston and Sampson's drawings. They haven't done any calculations to find out how big that has to be. So, there's a little bit of creating a problem here by putting the communications tower so close to the main construction on the site.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a deep excavation, and there's going to be probably rock blasting, probably, all those vibrations which occur in those situations. And I don't know how sensitive the antennas are, but they may well be very sensitive to vibrations. It seems to me it's probably the worst location that could have been chosen from an engineering point of view.
Well, I don't entirely agree with you.
Where would it have been worse to put it?
Well, I mean, if you want to go by the proximity of the homes and concerns from residents, and
no, I'm saying from an engineering point of view.
I understand that, and we don't know. The RFP is going out. If it cannot be constructed in that northwest corner, the RFP is going to come back and reflect that. That we're certain on.
Well, they can construct it, but it's what comes on later that's the concern. Once that tower is in place and the ballasted foundation is in place, then there's going to be a deep excavation right next to it.
We had a possibility of putting the antenna on the easterly side of the site. That was not well received during that conversation, and this is what the final decision led us to for the location for the RFP. So, I mean, ideally, I'd like to have the thing completely off-site. have more room, but that's not an option for us. So we will have to design it in such a fashion and construct it in such a fashion to take precautions for that.
Okay.
I mean, I share your concerns. I just, you know, we are stuck to a shoebox size lot, and a lot of things going on that site.
Well, not really. I mean, it's not that small a lot.
It is that small when you're looking at the construction of the site. We have a laydown area that takes up the diameter of the size of the tank because that's how big you need to have it for the pan.
Sure.
And then now you have a large size crane on site also trying to move and pick that and put that in place. So it is a tight site. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not open by any means.
Well, anyway, I mean, obviously Weston and Sampson are going to have to be fully aware of whatever limitations there will be in terms of excavating close to the ballasted foundation. And you may have to do some soil support.
Yeah, none of these decisions have been made in a bubble and without consultation to Weston and Sampson and the carriers for that matter. So, I mean, ideally there would have been some better locations if it wasn't on site or as far off to the easterly side as possible. But that was, you know, that was rendered not ideal and not a good location during the CPDC process. So this is what we're left with in the site that we have to manage.
Quick question on logistics and space on site. Where will the crane sit to hoist? Will it sit so, you know, because you've got the laydown area, and then obviously you're gonna have to pick that and put it in its permanent location.
Yeah, we've had some conversations with tank constructors and you know, it can come in on their easterly side and get close to that laydown area depending on the size crane they have. It could also possibly pick from the street. With the size crane that they're using, I'm sure their reach will be big enough from the street. So it wasn't, when we met on site with the contractors and some of those tank companies, they said it wasn't an issue. It was just going to be more of we may have to shut the road down for the pick or something like that, which is fine. You can do that.
Okay. Would it make sense to send us a copy of that RFP? Just so we can see what's in it?
Which one? The cell tower?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
I
can
don't
send
think
that.
we have that. Right?
Ryan, this is Brad Condon. Do you happen to know off the top of your head how tall that monopole will be?
I think the monopole is going to be somewhere around 140, and then with the whips on top, it'll be just slightly a little taller. But the pole itself is about 140. I don't think they can go any higher than that with a ballasted monopole.
Yeah, and I don't know if this was considered or not, but it would possibly resolve John's concern on the excavation nearby. Is if you just placed a concrete foundation in the ground that went 4 or 5 feet deep or something, and it has anchor bolts. They set the monopole. They put the temporary antennas on it. Once they get swapped back onto the new tank, remove the monopole, cut off the anchor bolts, and just abandon the concrete foundation in place. I don't know if that was considered or not.
Yeah, I mean, since it's entirely funded and paid for and designed for by the carriers, then it was left open for their design on what they felt as though they could put in that footprint.
Gotcha. I've put up a 150-foot tall monopole, and we used I think it was either a 12 by 12 or a 15 by 15 foot concrete foundation. So it would take less footprint. You wouldn't be as large as 25 by 25.
Right. I understand. When we were speccing this out for just the town's 911 equipment, we were going to use rock anchors and have a foundation, but
gotcha.
we did not give them a design. So I mean, it quite possibly could be a ground foundation, rock anchored foundation. we don't know yet. We haven't received them. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Ryan, this is Greg. I guess I would, and it's, it's one of those, it's too late at this point, but just to maybe rephrase John's concerns differently is, if whoever responded to the tower RFP knew the limits of the excavation for the water tank, they could design a foundation for the monopole that took into account, the close proximity of that excavation. Instead, we have it going backwards, where we're going to allow the tower RFP respondent to build whatever foundation they want, because they don't know the constraints or limitations of the foundation design and construction methodology for the water tank foundation. So it's going a little.
You cut out.
I think we might have lost you, Greg.
We kind of missed the end there, Greg. Are you still with us? So I think what he was saying, it's going a little bit backwards, tail wagging the dog. I don't know if there's anything, as we talk through this, if there's anything you want to include in that RFP. You don't have the water tower foundation designed, but I think Weston and Sampson has a pretty good idea of what they expect the design to come back with. And, if nothing else, we could make sure in the next week through an addenda that we communicate as much as humanly possible to the tower, to the whoever is responding to the RFP on the temporary tower. One question I have, does that include, so that RFP is to put in the foundation, the monopole, swap over the antennas?
Yeah, so it's really tricky because we can't specify who gets to go on that monopole. What we can only specify is that it shall be a minimum of 2 carriers with the and it shall have space enough to accommodate all of the 911 and facilities equipment. And so what could there's a few scenarios that could happen. One, the likely scenario would be that the carriers that are on the existing tank are the ones that put together, or one of the two, or both, put together a bid and send it in, and they swap over their own equipment. The other one that could happen is a third-party tower installer could come in, put a bid in, and then construct it, and then charge whoever they want, whether one of 4 carriers, space on that monopole. So it's not entirely 100% that the carriers that are on the existing tank will be the ones that are on the monopole. It's likely, but it's not 100%. And so we won't know that until we open up the bids on the 27th and see where we're at. But that's the scenario that could happen. I do want to point out, and Mike, maybe you can correct me here, but the water tank pedestal is quite a distance away from that. It's about 20 feet. Am I correct?
That's the pedestal, yes. It's actually
Pedestal, yeah. I'd have to measure it, but it's this line near here that's dashed is the pedestal itself.
So just going off that 20-foot diameter around the pedestal, that was reinforced turf for a man lift. So we placed the reinforced honeycomb turf there, something that you can't see. You only see grass coming up through it, but it provides more of a structural support for a man lift, just in case they need it for cables or anything like that.
That's listed as a 20-foot.
So that's the hashed area.
Right. So that doesn't get to that 25 by 25 foundation. So the distance is somewhere greater than 20 feet.
No, that's to the tower, the pedestal. The foundation for the pedestal extends, according to Weston and Sampson's drawings, is larger than the diameter of the tank. You look on their section, they're showing it 2 or 3 feet bigger in radius from the center than the face of the steel tank. So if you take,
It's
on
not
the-
to scale, but I see
And
what you're,
what I'm saying is it's likely, in my view, to be even larger than that, because this tank has huge seismic forces generated on it, and you've got to have a big foundation. So I'm saying that the distance from the edge of the 25 by 25 ballasted tower to what is shown on Weston and Sampson's drawings for the base of the steel tank is about 8 feet. And since the foundation is shown on Weston and Sampson drawings larger than the size of the steel tank, the excavation for the foundation is going to be closer than 8 feet. And it's going to be 11 foot deep. It's a problem, but Weston and Sampson are the engineers for, or the engineers advising you for both the temporary communications tower and the water tank. So let them solve the problem. That's what you hire them for. I'm just pointing out there's a potential problem there.
understood.
Yep.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm not sure when my my thought ended, but it sounded like Pat rehashed it for me. But the other observation I was going to make to John's point is, or at least my own part of John's observation is, you know, letting CPDC and the neighbors dictate where a temporary structure is going to go that has significant impact on potential cost. Maybe, and I know it's not your issue, Ryan, but a little foolish in my opinion if we end up having to do expensive SOE or drilled and grouted mini piles to tension the base of a temporary structure. I could see a lot of dollars and a lot of cost overruns related to making these two structures coordinate with each other when it could have gone in a different spot and worked as a ballasted foundation like it was intended to.
Ryan, one question on the RFP. The entity that constructs that foundation, designs it, constructs it, builds the monopole, do they remove it, and do they own like maintaining it during the
Yes.
course? So
Yes.
so I think we should make sure that we make it abundantly clear what we're doing with the water tower foundation in that RFP, so that they can understand what they're going to be up against, and you know, to the point of maybe putting in a foundation, a smaller foundation, not ballasted like Brad was mentioning. It's sort of a different way of managing the problem. You know, you're kind of managing the risk and liability, and by making sure they're aware that they own that, you know, they'll kind of help solve the problem. They might solve the problem by adding money to their bid too, but but they might solve the problem by coming up with a creative way to do so. And they'll ultimately own that temporary tower and insure that temporary tower. They'll like own the insurance on that tower while we're building a water tower next to it. Yeah. Does anyone else have any other on comments on where we're at right now? Questions? Ryan and Michael, was there more that you wanted to review with us at this time? I don't know if you were done, or we just interrupted you halfway through.
No, I thought we were just having an open conversation here. So at any point you want, you can just stop us. But
Okay.
I mean, certainly we had the same concerns. We still have the same concerns. I mean, one of the areas that we did propose was the back right corner. And again, it's not to say we can't go back to CPDC for a major modification on the project and get it get that approved. It's just that's what's out in the RFP now. We can send out another addendum. We can make a better clarification. And then, I don't know, Mike, I mean, in your experience, do you know typically what these foundations look like? Again, we have rock that's pretty close to the surface too, so that could play a role in having a different style foundation for the tank itself.
I'd have to look at some of the previous projects just to review approximate dimensions. I don't have that at the top of my tongue, tip of my tongue, as far as what they installed. I know that we have done something fairly recently of a similar style, not as tall, but it was installed right on top of, or right, rock was at close proximity to the surface. So I could look back and see and provide you with some, we can discuss and see if we wanted to include something in the RFP in an addendum. But as far as approximate dimensions, I don't have that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Some things that have changed from the plan. There's some pertinent work on there as far as valves and piping, and just extending off site. We're doing a lot of triple gating work, replacement of lines. I believe the last rendition on the plan would be to replace the line, that 12-inch water main cast iron is unlined, and replace it with a 16-inch cement line ductile iron out to Beacon Street, part of this project. We're already there doing 3 or 4 cut-ins with valves, so the added cost of adding that 200 plus feet of pipe is minimal to the project. So we'll be doing that.
I think that made it into the most recent. Fortunately, CPDC got something a couple days old, and when it was submitted to DEP, it did show this line being replaced by hydrants and services. This piece too, I think, changed since we last presented to PVC. We just shifted over the inlet outlet piping to get it out of the way of the overhead door here.
Yeah, some of the other things some minor things that we have discussed under the design of this tank is to have conduiting go in through the foundation and base of the pedestal, coming out to terminate outside the foundation, in hopes that we might be able to bring in the power for the radio equipment, and bring the radio equipment for at least the 911 equipment inside the pedestal, and basically remove a structure that's needs to be maintained, to just have one structure, and have all the town's equipment inside and protected inside the pedestal of the water tank. And then that would remove the radio building on site and clean up the area a little bit. The generator would stay, and then we also would talk about possibly utilizing that generator to help as a backup for our instrumentation as well. So just some things in the future we're just going to set ourselves up for, so we have the ability to do that in the future if money allows. I don't know if we missed anything else. I think we've talked a great deal about the majority of the things on the project. Those were, for me, the things that I think stuck out from our last meeting and that may have changed. Mike, did I miss anything? It's kind of hard to know where we've been and what we've talked about, but there's the plan with the soil evaluation, the analytical on there. I think we had one area right there that went over 200, and then an 800 sample.
Yeah, they were all very consistent with what we had previously seen on the rest of the site.
So what you see there, the hashed area, is what we're removing on site. And so what that'll do is it'll leave
basically the entire site.
Yep, and with everything that we had going on with that site, with the possibility of the use on the easterly side, still not voted on by town, but still a potential. We're there, we're stripping it in its entirety. So when we leave, we know we've done the best that we can for the town and left it in the best case scenario. So
So one question regarding that, Ryan, has anyone, I think John brought this up in the first round of comments. Has anyone done an updated cost estimate on this? Obviously it's, you know, a lot of these things, you just see it keeps going up, up, up.
yep. Yep. So Weston
Material
Sampson,
escalation isn't helping either.
what's that?
I said, I'm sure material escalation isn't helping either.
No, and so we're trying to hopefully play that market a little bit, but steel's going up, gas is going up, so everything's going to be going up. We have an engineer's estimate that will be done hopefully mid-June, and once that's done, that will be used in coordination with the bid pricing to supply town meeting with an updated cost if we have to ask for more money.
Okay.
Chances are we are going to have to ask for more money just based on soil removal, but also based on material costs. That price was 2017 price or 2018 price, Mike? Is that about right?
Yeah, the last one that you utilized.
Yes. So town meeting's
Yeah,
aware that this is
2018.
coming in front of them. So hopefully it won't be a big escalation.
Now, how would you manage that with a July 31st bid opening? The bid that's probably good for 30 work days.
We can ask the bidders to hold their bids for a period of time as long as it's in the bids. That's what they have to do.
Okay.
There is enough money to take on the project, then we should be fine. And then we could, you know, go back to town meeting to supplement the shortfall. So,
Okay.
Graham, could I ask a question which if we had been involved in the project earlier than we were, which we should have been, but we weren't, but how was it determined that we need a water tower which is of the particular height that is shown on the drawings? Were there hydraulic calculations done to
yes.
We couldn't live without a
Yes.
low height?
Yes, we've done extensive modeling and hydraulic modeling. We've been at this for several years, and this is sort of the final step. We've done countless hydraulic calculations, modeling with Weston and Sampson and the MWRA when they were doing their Northern Intermediate pipeline that came through with the 36-inch line. And we had to size the appropriate size vaults for that. When we ran those models, we found that, you know, ideally we could run on only one tank instead of having two tanks. So essentially what hopefully will happen is once this tank is replaced, we can then start looking at removing Bear Hill off of our distribution system, which adds almost close to 1 million gallons of water in our system. And will just help reduce our water age in our system as well. But to answer your question, we've done extensive modeling.
Okay, but it's really a cost issue because as the more you elevate the water in the air, the costs go up enormously. If you could put the tank at, like, instead of the pedestal being 60 feet high, if it was 40 feet high, you would see a tremendous reduction in costs in terms of foundations.
But we can't do that based on our operating elevations. Our operating elevations dictate that hydraulic grade line.
Okay,
which is the operating range is anywhere between what 72 feet to 90 something feet.
74.5 to 92.
To 92, and so we need that to maintain proper flows and proper pressures in our systems, not only for domestic supply but also for fire flows.
Sure. Okay. So if the bid comes in, you know, outrageously high, there's no way that you can fine tune it by lowering the height of the tank, is what you're telling us.
No, that's not an option.
Okay.
What else? We can run without a tank for a short period of time. What we do not like to do is have no redundancy in our system. Even though we have 2 valve vaults, we need to have storage and redundancy in our system for a massive fire. Particularly, we saw this happen when the Sanborn Apartments, which is the old high school, went up in flames, and we had almost every single fire department in the area pumping out of our system, and so we could do only as much as we could do to keep that full. So we definitely need a tank in our system. That's 100%. So, and we cannot go any lower than what we have it at.
But during this construction, you got 800 days or something like that. You'll be operating just with Bear Hill, is that correct?
That's correct, but we're able to do that because we have the two connections that have been finished off the Northern Intermediate High, which is a 36-inch pipeline. We're able to run off of one tank. We did it last summer for a period of time. We had to take Auburn Street offline for a period of time, and so we did that during the peak season, and we were fine.
Yeah, that was really the basis of my question. Was that since there have been a lot of changes in the hydraulic situation in town with the water mains. Now we're on MWRA. What are all those changes reflected in the need to go as high with this tank? And you're telling me, yes, we need to go to this height with this tank.
That's correct.
Good luck. It's a bid to come in outrageously high. I don't know what you're going to do. It's difficult situation.
It's a piece of infrastructure that needs that town needs. Period. It's unfortunate. I know Mike probably sees this all the time, but this is very critical to the town's distribution system, not only for domestic flows, but in particular for fire flows. So, we're at the lifespan of that 1953 tank, with structural issues mainly due to not only weather and rot and deterioration, but also from it not being constructed to hold structurally the carriers that have been on this tank for a period of time. So, yeah.
Okay, it was just a thought. That's all.
Ryan, just quickly, circling back to we got the drawings that you sent over. We had a few comments. I sent them over to you this afternoon. I wouldn't expect a bunch of answers within the last few hours since I sent them to you. But just wanted to kind of circle back on that. I feel like I should have reached out sooner to get the plans. And I would say going forward, if you're at a point where you have a product that you think it would be good time for us to provide input, send that right over, and you don't need to wait for us to ask, I guess. And,
yeah, I think we were stuck in that town meeting, cycle there, which I was at all those town meetings too. So, it just, when we kept pushing it off, it wasn't on my radar there for a little bit, but we can.
Yeah, I kind of felt like I dropped the ball following up with you.
But we can send these over anytime we make a change. It's as easy as sending an email. We can send them over to you when we hit a milestone or we make a major change. We can send them over to you for review. That's not a problem at all.
Yeah, I think that would be the best thing. At not every single change, but at decent milestones.
Yeah, so there's a set with DEP now, which is very similar to this. The only thing that's different from what we had changed from when I think we sent it to you on either Wednesday or Thursday of last week, was the pipeline in the street, which I don't know if you're necessarily was focused on that piece, but that was the one change that DEP had seen, but outside of that, Mike, nothing's really changed, right? With the plan set, correct? This is the most up to date.
Yes, that's correct. This should be the most up to date. There might have been a misspelling or something along those lines that got caught, but no, nothing major should have changed between the two sets.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're still in the process of developing the bid package, and so you'll get that for review as well.
Okay. What I would say with the plans that we have, we got those. I probably sat on them for a day before I got them out to the team, and we provided some comments, but some people may not have had a chance to look at those yet. So one of my comments was like, when do you really need any feedback from us on those plans? Because like I skimmed through the specs, but I didn't read read them all, every word. I may get a little closer to that if I have more time. I'm not gonna dive into every little detail, but there were some things I wanted to dig into a little deeper. So is there a time frame? Like,
Yeah,
is there-
Mike, what would you say that we'd like to see those by? I mean, you know when we're putting this in the central register?
It would go into the central register the end of June in order to give the contractor or the potential bidders about a 3 or 4 week bid window. So
Maybe if we said mid-June, Pat,
Okay,
if we can provide you with enough time to do that, maybe mid-June, and then that would, even up to a week before we go out to the central register. I'm sure the changes aren't going to be that drastic, but I'd say mid-June.
okay. So the drawings we have now, if anyone wants to review them further, do a deeper dive, we'll look at them. We'll call it mid-June, because we don't want the leading up to putting it out to bid. I know that week before will be a little bit chaotic, so we'll target mid-June. And if there's any major changes, doesn't sound like there's going to be any major changes, but you'll keep us in the loop on any major changes.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see any more major changes. I think we've beaten this site pretty much to submission. So
Yeah.
what you see on the plan is pretty much it. There might be some tweaks here and there as we're going through, as far as, you know, things that we catch, but that'd be cleanup work on the plans.
Yeah.
And then Mike and I, in the meantime, will try to figure out exactly what's going on with that foundation and how it's going to coordinate with that temp tower.
Yeah. And if you have any questions on the comments, a lot of my questions were kind of open-ended, more like suggestions. Probably a little more to do with, contract, insurance, and bidding. John's are a little more technical, a little bit. But if you want to walk through any of those scenarios, you can always give me a call, or you can call anyone on the committee. I think as long as you're just communicating directly with someone on the committee, we should be fine.
Yeah, we can also, I think we had answers for a majority of those questions. I think just briefly, Mike and I had talked, so we could probably provide just a response back in those questions, and then just shoot them back off to you in an email format. And that way there's an open communication as far as what, you're sending your comments in, and, we may have answers to those immediately. We can just respond and send them back off to you. So if you give us like a few days, we might be able to draft something up and just respond off to those comments.
That'd be fine. That'd be great.
Even if it is, yes, that's a great comment. We'll have to, we'll look into changing something, or if we have an answer for it, we'll put an answer in there.
Okay.
I will say that the kind of the measurement and payment and the bid form were still kind of works in progress a little bit. So as far as, if you're going to be providing comment on the plans a little by mid-June, I think as we get a little closer to kind of finalizing how we want to bid this and how we want the bidder to respond and what we're going to include for quantities, we should provide another set of spec, and we can try to keep a log or tabs on the major changes. But I think for the most, I do know those were kind of things that I was still wrestling with, but we needed to get something to DEP so they could start reviewing it. So
yeah.
So I can certainly, like, I'm looking at, specifications. There's a bid form question. So like Ryan said, we can just provide something like, we'll touch on that and revise and resubmit.
Yeah, that's fine. I assumed that a lot of the front end stuff was preliminary, but sometimes you're not sure,
Right.
Yeah, Pat, this is when now that we know we're pretty close to the site, this is when they start diving into the specs really, and the measurement and payments and things like that. So,
okay.
And Mike, that's a good point. I didn't think about that, and we may have to get back to maybe mid-June might be a little too late for plan changes. Maybe we might have to pull that back a week, so then it gives us enough time to make any changes to the measurement and payment so it can be looked at. But we'll hold fast to that mid-June for now, and if we have to push that forward, I'll let you know.
Okay, why don't we call it June 11, which is actually, we'll go to June 13, which is a Sunday. Sundays are better for us.
Okay.
Because we work on the weekends. Okay. One comment with one of the items that you mentioned about changing the paint color. If you're considering that, I would definitely make it an alternate to the contract instead of, discussing it with the contractor afterwards. I don't know how bidding works. Usually you need to take the alternates in order, at least in chapter 149. I don't know how many.
It's the same way in 30. So we could put it in. We
Put
could
it as like your last alternate or something.
I don't think we have any other alternates, so it would just be alternate one. We could put it in there. We have to be specific, though, I believe, on the color, right, Mike? So everyone bids on one color change.
Right.
Okay.
That's what I was struggling with, but I think we would want to write in a specific color or a specific design and say bid alternate 1 is sky blue, for example. Bid alternate, I guess we could do a bid alternate 2 for forest green or white, something along those lines. And I think as long as we write it into the specifications, I'm pretty sure we can award base bid plus bid alternate A or base bid plus bid alternate B. So
who would make a determination or a suggestion as to color? I mean, are people just giving their personal opinions, or do we have some kind of expert here, a landscape architect, something like that?
It will not be me, John.
Well,
I will not be choosing that color.
There's got to be a rational reason for spending money changing the color from.
I personally don't see the reason for changing the color. I think that the standard colors are usually standard for a reason, because those are the colors they use most often. In particular, to one manufacturer, they have a cobalt blue, which I think looks nice, but
you're not an expert.
But I think I'm
calling for an expert opinion as to why we should be talking about colors. What's wrong with?
Because that is the process that involves the public. So the public has, when they come into CPDC and they make suggestions, and the CPDC asks for us in their final decision to make a consideration for a color change, we have to adhere to that to the best that we can. That's in the final decision. So that's just another board. That's just another board process that we went through. So that may come up with the select board at some point, that body. Maybe they can make the decision.
But what I'm saying is I've had some experience of people going to a public meeting for a bridge out in Williamstown, and somebody standing up in the audience and says, I want the concrete to be not the standard concrete color, but the same color as a bridge like 50 miles away. Can you go and see that bridge and produce concrete of that same color? For no rational reason. If we're going to talk colors, it's got to be some rational reason to prefer one color to another one.
I haven't heard one yet in the public forum. Just basically, I've heard I either like that color or I don't like that color.
Yeah. Because bid alternates are always a problem. I mean, not always a problem. Often are a problem if you have alternates.
So that's what Mike and I were struggling with. There's a few things struggling here. You don't know. You're not 100% sure what tank manufacturer you're going to get. So you're not 100% sure what the color schemes are going to be. Right. So to say it shall be this color, it could be a different color palette from a different manufacturer. So it's a little difficult to sit in there and say, what color it should be. One way we could do it is to say, give us a bid alternate to change to one solid color, a different color. But not knowing their manufacturing process and what their standard solid colors are, then that could also lead us into a little bit of a problem.
Well, at least
I don't see a problem with the standard colors, to be honest with you, but go from there. I mean, to talk about one of the examples that you just gave, we ran into several comments like that from the public as to change the texture of the concrete on the pedestal to Mike, how many different things did we have come up? Ivy on the pedestal, living
Mural.
mural. So
Yeah.
practically speaking, engineering speaking, those are all really not good things to do, especially putting a living wall on concrete. I mean, that could damage the concrete. Putting a texture on the concrete, that I think that cost to that was $500,000 just to do that, just to create the forms to do that.
Yeah.
So, you know, you start driving the cost up there when you start talking about aesthetics.
Well, just a couple of thoughts. If whether it's taken aside that someone may or may not agree with changing the color, I think if you know a change that you want to, a change that you may want to entertain, I would recommend making it an alternate as opposed to trying to negotiate later. Because
Yeah, I would agree with that, Pat, because I don't want to be held under their gun for a change. That's for sure.
Right. The way I would imagine that would be worded would be the base bid and the base spec would be the manufacturer's standard range of colors, which may only be one color. And then the alternate would be, for, a custom color. This is something that you would typically see with with other architectural finishes, aluminum storefront, things like that. Obviously, this is a little more involved. So maybe something as simple as a custom color, in a spec as an alternate is not specific enough. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's sort of how I was thinking it would be worded too, Pat, was that we don't specifically say a color. We just say, you shall give us a price for, a custom, one solid custom color, not like a bi-color,
Right.
paint job,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I think you have to specify that it's not like 50 colors on the thing.
right, exactly. And then
You'd be able
so
to specify a custom color and see what the price is. So you
right,
can-
and so they may bid it accordingly to one of their standard 4 or 5 colors they have, or they may just say, okay, we don't know what it is, and we'll put a larger, we'll cover the cost for, something crazy like, I don't know, polka
But
dots.
you have to make sure that it's understood that the low bidder is the low bidder on the base bid without alternates. Because if you get to a situation where somebody's alternate is less expensive than another person's alternate, and you choose the alternate so that the base bidder, the low bidder, is no longer the low bidder.
Well, so
That's a situation you don't want to get into, believe me.
You can, John, you can do that. The rule is you have to award the alternates in order.
correct.
Yes,
And you can't manipulate the alternate specifically because you like a bidder better.
that's correct.
Whoever the public entity, whether that's us or DPW or someone that's going to decide we're taking base bid and alternate 1 and alternate 2, you need to make that decision based on your budgets and the facts and the
Yeah.
engineering.
So
And then
we've
when you get to that point, whoever is the low bidder is the low bidder.
yeah, that's correct, Pat. And we've run into that scenario before. We've had the base bidder win the bid, but then when we had the alternates added on, it was a different bidder that won the bid. So
And then the lawyers get involved.
Well,
No.
I've been involved in a job where we bid a job and we were the low bidder, and we were low bidder with alternate 1, and we were low bidder with alternate 2, and then we no longer became the low bidder at alternate 4,
yeah, it happens.
4 and 5. And fortunately for us, they didn't have the money to do all the alternates.
Yeah, as long as it's specified in the bid how it will be awarded. So the first award will go to base bid, and then if we add alternate, it'll be base plus alternate 1, base plus alternate 1 plus alternate 2, and that's how it gets awarded all the way down. And so if the town has enough money to do up to alternate 3, then whoever's the winner at the end of alternate 3, combined total is the lowest responsive bidder. So
Okay.
We've done
I
it
think it sounds like if we have any alternate, it sounds like the only one will be one paint.
I-
A little bit
I
up
think
in
so.
the air, and I get it. There's a lot of complexities to that.
yeah, I think so. I think we're only looking at one alternate, if at all. So
Does anyone else have any questions or comments for Ryan and Michael? I think, is there anything else on the agenda to discuss? Does anyone have any new business? Silence. One thing on new business I just did want to mention is, what is it? It's May. I think in June, some of us come up, myself included, may come up for renewal. Probably me and you, Greg. So just make sure you get whatever you need to get in.
Yeah, I'm on that list.
Yeah. You and me both. We don't want to pull what we did 3 years ago. Okay.
But persona non grata.
So again, Brian and Michael, thank you very much for the information. Very informative. If you have any questions as you're going through those comments, feel free to reach out. If you can get back to us with some sort of preliminary responses, and don't feel like at least from my perspective, a lot of them were definitely suggestions, and things just to make you think. So if you've got it and you're thinking about it, that's kind of all I need to know. I don't necessarily need the final answer to the question.
Yeah, no, we appreciate the comments, and we'll respond back accordingly.
Okay.
I'll continue just to keep this open. I'll just send you over whatever we have. Maybe not every plan change, but we'll send over a response to the questions, and then if anything else pops up, if you have a comment that you had thought about, just shoot me an email and let me know.
Okay.
So.
Unless anyone else has anything else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So Pat, our next meeting is June 7th. Did we want Ryan, and that might be better than in terms of a deadline. I don't know. In terms of comments.
So what's today? So that's in what, 2 weeks or 3 weeks? 3
2
weeks?
weeks, I think. Well, 3 weeks, because the 31st is a Monday.
Yeah. Okay.
That I'd be fine with that.
So we'll try to have any comments to you prior to that meeting.
Yeah.
And we'll put you on the agenda for another update.
Sure. I think that'll work out. I'm fine with doing that. It'll give us some time to get some responses and keep this conversation going.
Okay. Thank you, Nancy.
Welcome.
And a reminder, we have a meeting in 3 weeks. Not 4 or 5 like we normally do.
Right. I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
Nancy?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Kirk?
Aye.
Brad?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Oh, I need to vote as well. Aye. Thank you. Thank you all. That should wrap it up.
Thank you.
Good.
Thanks.
Thank you.